Let's head over to the phones. You're going to want to grab this book. It's called The Silencing: How the Left is Killing Free Speech. The author is Kirsten Powers, Fox News contributor, USA Today. She's all over the place, and she's with us right now. Kirsten, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking time out of your morning to join us. Looks like a fascinating book. Haven't had a chance to go through all of the aspects of it yet, but as usual, what was the genesis of the idea? What was there a certain incident? Was there something that you read about or encountered that kind of fired off the trigger on this?
Yeah, well, there were a series of incidents. I as you mentioned, I read a column for USA Today, and I noticed that I was writing about this issue increasingly, and that actually got to the point where I thought, I can't do another column on this. I need to write on something else. But every week there was some incident where somebody was being silenced and marginalized for holding a view that what I call the illiberal left in the book, which I distinguish from your sort of average Democrat or principled liberal, didn't approve of. And, it was people like Brendan Ike at Mozilla who was pushed out of his job, forced to step down because of a 6-year-old donation he'd made to an anti-same-sex marriage initiative. It was Ayaan Hirsi Ali having an honorary degree, invitations to receive an honorary degree revoked because of things that she said that were completely unrelated to the honorary degree. She was being honored for her really incredible work on women's rights, and yet, because of things that she had said about Islam, which is the religion of her upbringing, students had protested and they withdrew the invitation. And so it was those kinds of things where I thought, are these just one-offs, or is there something else going on that's bigger? And so I started looking into it, and what I discovered was there was something much, much bigger going on, and there was so much more that I just had been completely unaware of, and that I think a lot of other people are unaware of. And so I wanted to do a journalistic look at it and really chronicle what's happening.
Kirsten, is that contributing to a breakdown in the ability of people who are on opposing sides of an issue to really debate freely the ideas? The president often will, instead of engaging on issues, question the motives of those who disagree with him. We actually saw it in reverse when the president criticized Elizabeth Warren for her stance on the fast track deal, where you had other senators say, well, the president's saying that because he's sexist, because she's a woman. There's this inability to connect on the issues.
Well, but the people who are doing that would be it's exactly what I'm talking about with the liberal left. The president just happened to be the
right.
victim of it, and so the perpetrator in this case. And that's what is happening increasingly, is that people, it's not just for conservatives, it's for pretty much everybody. And I have examples throughout the book and interviews with people who have been on the receiving end of these different silencing tactics that are, used to delegitimize them, to basically say we don't have to argue with you because you're a misogynist or you're a homophobe. And many of them are themselves liberals or politically agnostic people who weren't even looking to be in the political debate per se. And so, yeah, there is. It's not just an inability to debate, though. It's a belief that there's nothing to debate. So that's what the liberal left does, is that they have all the answers. They've figured it out. The debate is over. It's very authoritarian. It's very much, we're going to hand down this wisdom to you, and you're going to accept it. And if you question it, then we're going to attach some sort of really toxic name to you. That's going to make you kind of radioactive for the rest of society. It's not like calling somebody stupid. If somebody calls me stupid, okay, you don't like it. If somebody calls you a homophobe, that's an entirely different situation.
Speaking of people calling people things, what's been the social media reaction to you and this book?
Oh, it's been very high-minded, really thoughtful debate. You can imagine. I mean, it's social media. I mean, we say anything more. And there's been, I'm aiding a right-wing homophobic agenda, by defending the free speech rights or freedom of expression rights of Brendan Ike, who actually didn't even express anything publicly. He made a private donation. By the way, to something that I oppose. I opposed Proposition 8. So I'm not defending him, his position. I'm saying that I think we need to be able to live in a society where people can disagree without being labeled, a bigot and a homophobe for what I think is a sincere difference of belief, and that I would rather persuade people and have a debate rather than trying to push people sort of underground and say, if you come out and you say these things, we're going to make you completely radioactive to the rest of society.
Kirsten Powers with us. Her book, The Silencing, How the Left is Killing Free Speech. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. If people don't know, I would hope they already know, Kirsten is a liberal. So in some ways, she's criticizing people she agrees with on many of these topics. And as you pointed out, you do spend a large portion of the book talking about the left going after the left in some ways. I'm sure you also take a close look at why this has happened, why we have kind of devolved toward this name-calling or this shutting down of people who simply have a disagreement or are challenging you in your own opinion. Why do you think that's happened, and why, maybe it's just me, why has it happened so quickly over these past number of years?
Well, yeah, it's been percolating, right? This has been happening, and it is starting to gain steam. A little bit of it is the social media aspect, the fact that you can start a petition, or the internet. You can start a petition to ban a speaker who's coming, right? In the past, it would have been much harder to do that. So I think that definitely contributes to it. The why is, although I will say a lot of the examples in the book have nothing to do with social media. So it's not, people are getting plenty of silencing done without enlisting any social media. But I do think the why, I haven't completely figured out but the thing that struck me when I was writing the book was I just stopped one day and I thought, these people just remind me of religious zealots. They are so convinced. And they truly are. It's not, as many people say, oh, they don't have the courage of their convictions. They don't really believe what they're saying, so they have to silence people. I think it's the opposite. I think that they are absolutely positive that they're right, that they have the capital T truth, that they have figured it out, and it is righteous. It is absolutely righteous for them to silence people who disagree with them on these issues because they are so sure that they're right. And so it's this sort of authoritarian impulse of we're going to protect people from being exposed to ideas that they shouldn't be exposed to. Because that's the extra step that I also noticed was there's your sort of your average intolerance, which is bad in itself, which is I can't hear other ideas. The speaker's coming to campus, I'm not going to listen to them things I don't like. Okay, that's one thing, which I think is a problem. But that's not, they're taking the extra step. And they're saying when the college Republicans invite somebody to come speak to them, it's not just that they're not going to go to the speech. They're going to try to stop the campus Republicans from hearing from this person. So they're taking the extra step of trying to keep other people from hearing ideas and delegitimizing other ideas. And this is different than what they were doing in the past. In the past, it was just this sort of, I'm just going to stay in my little bubble. And now it's a righteous act to silence people.
And Kirsten, one of the things that we've looked at, and I must say with a raised eyebrow more times than not, is when someone is going to come and speak at a campus, or they're going to take part in this and that. Well, all of a sudden now we've got trigger warnings, and we require a safe space of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is a tactic. It's another tactic that they use, which is they treat a person coming, expressing a different view, like Christina Hoff Sommers, who's an AEI speaker who last month went to both Oberlin and Georgetown and got the same treatment, coming to speak about her view. She believes in something called equity feminism, which she distinguishes from what most people would consider liberal feminism. She calls it gender feminism. And she was coming to speak to the young Republicans and young libertarians, and she was met with these, students with the signs with the trigger warning, anti-feminism, meaning if I have to hear about someone who doesn't hew to my view of feminism, I'm going to be psychologically harmed. Signs saying safe spaces where you can go, to be safe because Christina Hoff Sommers is on campus, which we can kind of laugh at, except it's actually very chilling behavior because it's turning Christina Hoff Sommers into a dangerous person, right? It's that she's so dangerous that you need to have a safe space to go to when she's on campus. And what's so dangerous about expressing a different view? And she's happy to debate it. That's the thing. And I interviewed her, and she said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and the campus feminists and the women's studies professors, they used to come to the speeches, and they would challenge me, and we would debate. But now they're trying to keep me off the campus.
Kirsten Powers with us from Fox News, and also The book, The Silencing, How the Left is Killing Free Speech. It's linked up on our Twitter feed this morning. Find it there, Riley and Scott on WROK. Wanted to praise you, too, going back, I guess, two years now at least. Your coverage, your columns on the Kermit Gosnell case and a situation that was ignored by a large portion of the media, you helped to bring into the spotlight. I would imagine you were on the receiving end, much like you are as the book is released, but back then, on your columns, on your coverage of people saying, hey, just be quiet. Don't talk about this. Shut up, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was much worse than shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a lot. It was the sort of vicious character assassination from the feminists, the pro women feminists, who rather than arguing with what I was saying, were trying to attack me, and it wasn't really, to me, it didn't seem like honestly a particularly controversial position to take, that somebody who is, engaging in the kind of behavior that Kermit Gosnell is engaging in, which is harmful to women, to me, it's exactly the kind of thing that should have had everybody in the media up in arms. And so, to me, it just, I was actually surprised, frankly, by how, by the reaction to it. And I was also pleasantly surprised by the fact that there were people in the media who stood up and said, we made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
You had the editor of the Washington Post come out and say, we should have covered this. We were wrong. And that's, that's heartening. That because I do think we can forget that there are a lot of actually great people in the media, who, so I don't think that it was an all bad situation, but it was kind of incredible that story got as far along as it did without really any serious national coverage.
Have we reached or are we getting close to reaching the zenith of this sort of silencing thing, or are we just touching the tip of the iceberg and a new tactic will debut in 6 months and it'll be more of the same, or maybe you ringing the bell and others are starting to get people's attention?
I would be shocked if there isn't a new tactic down the road. I would love to think that this is something that's just a passing fad, but it just, based on the research that I was finding, there were so many examples that I couldn't even use. I had to get rid of a couple chapters, and so I don't. I see this, and then since the book went to print, there's just been one after another, after another, after another, and I spent a lot of time with the people over at FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, and that's just in the educational arena. And he gets hundreds of calls a year of people who are being really, really sometimes treated there's actual constitutional violations because they're state schools, and sometimes it's this more unofficial silencing that I talk about, which is harder for them to fight. But when it's an illegal issue, they can step in and they are able to defend these students. But it requires a student being willing to sue their university, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I don't know that I wanted to sue my my college, right? It's not. So sometimes it's hard to find students who will actually be willing to do that, but they do, and they win, and in many cases, or often even just getting the letter from FIRE telling them, we're going to, you're violating the First Amendment, will often cause them to back off. But you would think at a university they would already be concerned about violating the First Amendment, and they wouldn't need a letter from a legal organization, to tell them to allow people their First Amendment rights on campus.
Kirsten Powers with us. The Silencing is the book. How the Left is Killing Free Speech. It's linked up on our Twitter feed. I know you got to run here in a second, but the college campus situation almost bothers me the most, because that's where you learn habits that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. That's supposed to be one of the most free spaces anywhere. It's an environment of learning and being exposed to things you perhaps weren't exposed to earlier in life. What will it take for? We've seen a number of college administrators just sort of cow down, and if there's a petition to remove a speaker, they just do so in the name of free speech, I guess, or not being offensive to some people on campus. But it seems there has to be some pushback to allow colleges to get back to the way they used to be, or we're going to be in trouble for a generation.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what's supposed to be happening on these campuses. And, I talk about in the book at Marquette University, there was a slide in a training session of professors of how to deal with certain conflicts. And one of them shows two students talking to each other, two female students, and they're talking about how they oppose same-sex marriage. And the third student overhears it, and he's offended. And he reports it to the administration, and they say this was the correct way to handle this. So and they weren't even saying, they were having a conversation. And this is exactly, I think anybody who went to college, like, this is what you do in college. You talk about ideas. And, my views in college have changed. And, people should be able to express their views and not feel like they're going to be informed on, because they've said something that is quote-unquote offensive, which is now the worst thing you could ever do on a college campus. And we have to just get rid of this idea. Like, you should be getting offended. You should be upset. You should be confronted with ideas that are, challenging you and debating them. And that's the whole point of being in college.
You're going to want to grab this book, learn from it. A lot of the things that you may have noticed on the periphery, Kirsten gets into in great detail. The Silencing, How the Left is Killing Free Speech. Kirsten Powers, thanks a lot for taking time for us this morning.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.